Hi, I'm Brett, and today we've got another update on a really fantastic car that's now over 15 years old, and it's a two-door MY99 version 5 Sti. Now these are sold in limited numbers in Australia. I can remember when they first went on sale how excited we were. There's some pretty dramatic things from an engine reliability point of view that we'll touch on in this video in the next 5 to 10 minutes. But what I want to show you at the same time is, like we've done on our other video updates the other day on the MY94 WX, it's a fantastic opportunity to show you the difference between the two models, but also to show you what you need to be aware of should you be looking at buying one of these cars, and also if you own one, how to maintain it and get the maximum reliability and performance out of the car. Now this car was one of the limited edition models which we spoke of before. Subaru Australia in those days, back in the mid-1998 period of time when the car was first developed for sale in Australia, didn't spend a lot of time tuning the factory ECU. You've got to remember these were quite popular in Japan, tuned by the Japanese parent company on 100 octane fuel. When they came to Australia, they had to retune the ECU to 98 octane fuel. The downside is, even when the cars were brand new being delivered out of the dealership, they were pinging. That is, they had high engine knock, rattly engines which were doing damage to pistons and big end bearings. And I can distinctly remember going for road testing brand new cars with customers, and they were saying, oh, what's this horrible noise? And it sounded like a glass jar full of marbles under the bonnet rattling so bad. So number one thing, make sure that you do use 98 octane fuel, and number two, if you've got time in the place, and make sure that you get the ECU retuned using EcuteK software, which can be done. A lot of people think it can't, but it can actually be reliability retuned. You pick up power, you pick up reliability, because one of the big things that engine knock damages is big end bearings, and a lot of people blame big end bearing failure on these engines for oil problems, when in actual fact it's the high amount of engine knock and pinging through the engine that causes the damage. So let's look at the rest of the car. Two-door car, same chassis as the 94 model. This particular car has got another brand of exhaust system. I'm not too familiar with it, but in a lot of ways it's similar to the way it fits with the one that we do from MRT. 3-inch exhaust stainless steel. You notice this car's still got the original factory sway bar and factory mounts, and again it's good to point out, compared to the other video, these mounts over a period of time can crack through the brackets where it bolts up here to the bolts to the chassis. There is some really good upgrades. You'll see the original factory sway bar links, which are plastic and deteriorate over time, so they squash and stretch as the sway bar goes through its torsional change when the car leans on the corners. These camber controls can tend to seize and lock up, because that's the way to adjust the toe on the rear of these cars. You can buy a replacement arm from White Line, which gives an adjustment in here to do away with the camber adjustment, the toe adjustment on the rear. Camber is adjusted at the base of the McPherson strut. You notice this particular model, we also touched on the video the other day, how it's damp around the side here. Now this may have a minor oil leak coming out around the drive shaft seals, but more than likely it's actually just a bit of heavy breathing out of the top of the breather at the top of the diff, where the oil in the differential may have got a little bit hot, and then it just wets the outside of the differential. What we'll do is clean that up and just tell the customer to keep an eye on it. Up underneath the back here, we've got the MCA shocks, because the car's now done well over 100,000 Ks, and we'll show a video on that in a sec of what they look like, because that's a fantastic way to improve the handling and the ride quality. The complete exhaust system goes down the front, which is good. This particular exhaust has got a flexible joint. The rear O2 sensor on this particular model is not used down here. It's actually used up the front in front of the catalytic converters, because this model has got one sensor, not two, like the later models with the Euro spec emissions requirements as the cars get younger. And then you'll notice, as we also touched on, being an STI model, it's got aluminium front control arms. Now you'll notice these joints here, which were modified on the other MY94 with the White Line anti-lift kit, actually haven't failed yet, which is a little bit surprising, a little bit damp inside, but we'll probably check them closely. They are a hydraulic filled joint, which can fail over time. But you can see, if you come around the front here, which is something that is often overlooked, the spraying of oil. Charlie, where's your lead light? And this grease has come out of a broken drive shaft. You see all of that there? That's spattered grease has come out of a busted drive shaft boot, which is something you definitely need to keep an eye on, which we have since repaired. The rest of the car, these front sway bar links can break if you put the car through a lot of load and start modifying your sway bars. Still, this car's got original factory front sway bars at the front and original factory sway bar links. You'll notice they're a little bit different to the WRX model, whereas the STI's got a ball joint link, which was quite common around about then. And you'll also notice it's still got the original factory exhaust manifold with the a good quality STI genuine oil filter. Now what we'll do is we'll come around the side, I'll get one of my mechanics to let the car down, and we'll talk about the struts. And you'll see from the side here, we've fitted our MCA blue McPherson struts at the front, which has got an adjustment at the base for ride height and the hub assembly, and up the top you'll notice it's got adjustment for spring flat platform. Really fantastic shock absorber. All the original factory brackets and ABS lines fit quite neatly. And we'll go around the back, and you can see down the back it's still a Chapman strut, has a guiding function like the front, a little bit different design, bolts on all the hub adjusters. And you've got to remember, on the rear end of these models, factory fitted, they don't have camber adjusters, but it is quite easy to modify that to allow you to adjust the rear camber on these cars. This car's got original brakes, so you notice on the back it's got a single piston sliding caliper with a ventilated disc. The handbrake is inside the disc. An upgrade for this car in the future will be some DBA T3 slotted rotors. And on the front, again different to the 94 model that we spoke about the other day, 4-piston caliper with the larger diameter rotor. Now, this was the diameter rotor that then later came out in the 01 onwards WRX, and this caliper carried through with some models depending where you are in the world. So let's have a talk about the engine bay. And one particular thing that you'll notice different with this compared to the 94 model and compared to the WRX model of the same year is the red inlet manifold. But unfortunately, over time, with people steam cleaning the engine bay, the really nice red coating on the manifold eventually erodes, and you're left with the original aluminium inlet manifold instead, which looks very similar to the WRX. The way to tell if you've got an MY99 model is, particularly if it's got a bolt-on blow-off valve with a connection to the factory intercooler. We've replaced this intercooler with a Process West one because the original STI one was starting to get a little bit damaged. Prior to the MY99 model, this was connected to the intercooler with another hose, and also prior to the 99 model, the coil pack was in a different location. So if you've got a WRX and you want to know whether you can tune the factory ECU, the easiest way to tell is it's got the coil pack in that location, and has it got a flange for the blow-off valve, which will tell you that it's a 99 model. And if you want to have a look another way, you can come around here, and on the door pillar on all Subarus of this year is the actual built date. Now this one was actually late 98, but it's an MY99 model. So that's the built date, but you got to make sure you don't get that mixed up with the compliance plate, because the compliance plate that's the chassis plate. The compliance plate, which is fitted by Subaru Australia, is the one over here, and that may have a different date on it as well, because that's the date it was registered in Australia, not the date it was built. So let's talk about other things in the engine bay. Really sensitive airflow meter sensor on these particular model cars. Easiest way to tell if it's new or old is by the white writing on the side. This sensor cannot be cleaned or modified, and typically it's the number one reason that accelerates the engine wear, as we spoke about with engine pinging and detonation damaging big end bearings. People don't realise how these can be contaminated with dirt and debris and oil on the air intake side, and then it dulls the signals from the sensor to the ECU, and then the ECU adds more ignition timing or different fuel mixtures, and you start doing damage to your engine. So that number one thing on your particular car, if you've got this year model car up until the 2000 model, not the bug eye onwards, but this particular model, it's prudent to replace those sensors every 12 months or about every 20-30,000 Ks. The thing that makes the Subaru STI different, which I'll point out, is it's got an additional air intake temperature sensor, which is fitted here, because the factory original air intake system draws air from behind the headlight, goes down through here, through a plenum chamber in the inner guard, and back up through the underside of the airbox, past the airflow meter, and then down into the turbo. You remember on the 94 model car, the air intake was the opposite way and it come around the back of the inlet manifold. Well, from 99 onwards was when Subaru changed it, particularly on the STI. And also, if you have a close look over here, this particular car has still got the original IHI VF28 turbo, which is a very small turbo. It comes on boost really hard and really early in the RPM range. Really reliable turbo, fantastic way to improve the performance of the car. However, they're not a really popular turbo anymore these days, and quite difficult to get. Other things to look at on this particular model, as we've spoken about before, is checking your timing belt, your tensioners, your idlers. Similar to the 94 model in our other video, it's got cam and crank angle sensors, which can sometimes be a little bit troublesome. Cam angle sensor is at the top here, at the back of the pulley, on top of the passenger side head. And then you've got the crank angle sensor, which is down there. But the one thing which we've already replaced on this car, and you can see the nice new plug right down the bottom inside there, is the knock sensor, because the knock sensors on these particular cars are a little bit troublesome, and that is really, really important, because that's the microphone for your ECU to listen to what your engine is doing. Has a huge effect on the amount of ignition timing that it adds. A little trick, if you want to be aggressive with your engine, you can put a fibre washer underneath the knock sensor, which dulls the signal, and therefore it allows the ECU to have more ignition timing. But you are playing with fire in that situation, because you could end up running too much ignition timing, do damage to your pistons or your bearings. You'll also notice this particular car down underneath here has got ABS. If it's a Japanese spec model, it will have no ABS and a washer bottle for the intercooler spray here. And I'm pretty sure this particular model, you'll know it's got a twin pump bottle, because it's got a rear windscreen wiper that comes factory fitted as well. So that's why it's got two pumps. A little trick, if you want to cheat, you can delete the washer on the rear windscreen wiper and run that pump to a water spray on the top of the intercooler. The Process West intercooler splitter comes pre-fitted with holes that you can fit the factory Subaru STI water spray nozzles, which is a pretty good trick if you want to improve the performance of your top man intercooler. So there you have it. You can improve these cars reliably. You can tune the ECU. You can get them to go a hell of a lot better if they're looked after properly. Other things to look at, which are wear and tear items, are the boost control system. All these hoses over here. The map sensor is mounted on the strut tower. The boost control solenoid is here as well. Wastegate control solenoid. And these hoses here do tend to go brittle and hard after a while, and by changing them to newer ones, the car will surprisingly go a lot better. One small thing, if you do change these hoses, there are some fittings inside these hoses which are restrictor pills, which affect the way the car comes on boost. Make sure you replace the parts correctly. So let's have a look inside, because this is one particular feature that is really, really good with the STI. It's got the white face gauges with a large tacho on the right, the speedo in the centre. If it's a Japanese spec car, and some of these models were speed limited, which we can change with the factory ECU. Really, really good interior. And if you've got a leather steering wheel, this particular one now comes out with the airbag, which is sitting on the passenger seat. We're about to get the steering wheel reupholstered, which is quite a common upgrade that we do these days as well. So, one last thing I'll show you too, which these particular models have. Factory fitted press button alarm. Now, if you've got a model with one of these alarms and it's not working, don't assume that it's been disabled. Sometimes over a period of time they just stop working because the battery backup has failed, or it's got a bad connection in the keypad, and then all of a sudden one day you go to jump in the car and find you can't start it because the alarm has locked yourself out of the car and it thinks it's being stolen. The other important thing is, if you do change the battery, you need to make sure that you've got access to the master code to reprogram the alarm, because this alarm system was fitted by Subaru Australia here in Australia as an aftermarket product. It is quite difficult to get some of the components to repair it these days, but they are a fantastic alarm if they're well looked after and maintained properly, because it's a simple function that increases the reliability of your car with reducing the risk of it being stolen, and it may have an effect on your insurance policy as well. So there you have it, Subaru MY99 99 two-door STI. It's a version 5, not a version 6, and the easy way to tell, if you've got a version 6, which was a later model 4-door, and had a lip on the back of the wing here. Version 5s, that's the shape of the wing. And also the version 6 come factory fitted with a front spoiler. I don't remember that this particular car comes factory fitted with that front lower lip. I'm just not 100% sure, but the 4-door model, which was the last of this era, MY99 version 6, had that lip and the modified rear wing. For more information, follow us on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. We'll put some still photos of this car on the link at the bottom of this video channel you can access off our Facebook page. Contact us if you want some information or some more help on your car, no matter where you are in the world. But for today, I'm Brett Middleton. Thanks for watching.